Let's listen to the official sound of NASA's Three-Eye Atlas. It triggered an overwhelming influx of alien spacecraft rumors. Word spread about a wandering ship carrying 10 million people and an alien probe hidden behind the sun. It sounded exactly like a sci-fi blockbuster plot. However, was this uninvited guest really that far-fetched? In reality, it was only the third interstellar comet discovered by humanity. Three-Eye Atlas. Since its first observation on July 1, 2025, this comet has captivated astronomers worldwide. Today, let's unpack the truth about Comet Atlas. Is it really an alien spacecraft? And why has it sparked so many wild speculations? Comet Atlas's full designation is Three-Eye Atlas C. 2025 N1. It is the third confirmed interstellar visitor, following Al-Mu'ah and Comet Borisov. Interstellar means it originated from outside our solar system, having previously drifted through the galactic void during its long journey. On July 1, 2025, the Atlas Survey telescope in Chile first captured its image. In less than 24 hours, scientists calculated its orbit and confirmed it was not bound by the sun's gravity, definitively ruling out a local origin. This immediately caused a sensation. Observatories and amateur astronomers globally rushed to observe it, as such interstellar visitors are exceptionally rare. A welcome surprise was that Atlas is also the largest interstellar object discovered to date. Latest observations indicate its core has a diameter of approximately 11 kilometers, significantly larger than the previous two interstellar visitors. However, there is no need for concern. This is not a world-ending impact event. According to NASA data, at its closest approach to the solar system, Comet Atlas will remain 1.6 to 1.8 astronomical units from Earth, roughly 240 to 270 million kilometers, where 1 astronomical unit is the Earth-Sun distance. This means its minimum distance from Earth exceeds the orbit of Mars. Therefore, Atlas poses no threat to our planet. Instead, it provides a rare opportunity for close observation of interstellar material. Given this, why did this comet still spark rumors of alien technology? To answer this, we must first clarify a fundamental point. Is Atlas a comet or an asteroid? And what is the difference? It is confirmed that Atlas is a comet, not an asteroid. This certainty stems from clear distinctions in composition and appearance between comets and asteroids, often discernible even with amateur telescopes. Asteroids are primarily composed of rock and metal, making them relatively solid. Comets, often called dirty snowballs, are made of ice, dust, and organic matter. When a comet approaches the sun and heats up, its ice sublimates, releasing gas and dust that form a diffuse coma and often a long tail, leaving a visible trail. In contrast, asteroids lacking significant volatile substances do not develop this cometary activity or tail, even when near the sun, and appear as simple points of light. In simple terms, comets look fuzzy with a tail from a distance, while asteroids appear sharp, like stars. Upon its discovery, Atlas was quickly observed to be surrounded by a fuzzy coma and dragging a short tail. Consequently, the International Astronomical Union officially classified it as a comet. Ironically, when initial observations were less precise, some speculated it might be a non-outgassing asteroid, but the emergence of its tail swiftly dispelled such notions. The variation in celestial body composition icy, mixtures versus rocky metal, relates to the temperature gradient during the solar system's formation. In hotter regions closer to the sun, volatiles like water and carbon dioxide could not remain solid long-term. Only heat-resistant materials like silicate rock and metal persisted. In the colder regions far from the sun, water, ice, and various gases could freeze solid and clump together, forming the conceptual snow line. In the primordial solar disk, water ice could only exist stably beyond about 3 astronomical units from the sun. Carbon dioxide required about 10 astronomical units, and gases like carbon monoxide needed to be beyond 30 astronomical units to freeze. Thus, the solar system developed an inner rocky and outer icy structure. The inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, are rocky, while the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, are primarily gas and ice. The asteroid belt in between contains scattered rocky and metallic fragments. Further out, beyond Jupiter's orbit, the Kuiper belt and the distant Oort cloud harbor countless frozen cometary nuclei. Typically, these comets reside in the frigid outer solar system. Once gravitational perturbations send them falling sunward, their ice begins to vaporize, transforming them into long-tailed comets. Most asteroids and comets within our solar system follow elliptical orbits around the sun. Some have highly elongated orbits but remain closed. Even visitors from the Kuiper belt or Oort cloud follow solar gravity-dominated elliptical or parabolic paths. Interstellar comets are different. They typically enter the solar system at high speeds on open parabolic or even hyperbolic trajectories. They appear to streak in on an almost straight path from interstellar space, make a sharp turn near the sun, and then head back out into deep space without returning. Comet Atlas's orbital eccentricity is approximately 6.1 to 6.2, which is unmistakably hyperbolic, not elliptical. Even the most eccentric long-period comets from the Oort cloud have eccentricities less than 1, meaning they are on extremely elongated elliptical orbits and will eventually return. Atlas is different. Its eccentricity far exceeds 1, clearly indicating it is just passing through. It is entering at about 60 kilometers per second from the direction of Sagittarius, slicing through the solar system, utterly unlike native comets obediently orbiting the sun. This extreme orbit reveals its origin. It is likely a rogue comet that formed around another star and was later ejected into interstellar space, only to briefly graze our solar system. Asteroids and most comets are solar system natives, formed from the primordial solar nebula. Interstellar comets like Atlas are guests from alien systems. Formed in the frozen realms around other stars, they were likely ejected by gravitational interactions. Our own solar system constantly ejects comets into galactic space. Estimates suggest billions may have been cast out over its lifetime. Atlas is likely a reciprocal gift from another star system. Notably, the previous two interstellar visitors were also comets, or at least exhibited cometary traits. Alma, initially tailless, was later suspected of releasing hard-to-detect gas. Borisov was unequivocally a typical comet. To date, humanity has never confirmed an interstellar asteroid, but we have several interstellar comets. This statistical trend supports the theory that comets, forming in the outer reaches of planetary systems, are more easily ejected into interstellar. In summary, by appearance, composition, and orbit, Atlas is unequivocally a standard dirty snowball comet. Exaggerated notions of a 50 km iron asteroid killer can safely be relegated to science. The second rumor concerning Comet Atlas involves its anomalous gas composition. Reports claimed an unusually high detected ratio of carbon dioxide to water, sparking wild theories, including CO2 exhaled by an alien army, even calculating that 10 million aliens exhaling could match Atlas's CO2 output. This reasoning is absurd. In reality, high CO2 and low water content is perfectly normal comet behavior, with no evidence suggesting alien activity. The explanation is straightforward. A comet's outgassing depends on distance from the sun and sublimation temperatures. Water ice sublimates significantly only above roughly 0 degrees Celsius, while CO2 ice sublimes around -70 degrees Celsius. Therefore, when a comet is far from the sun, the first volatiles to escape are easily sublimated gases like CO and CO2. Water vapor emission only becomes dominant when the comet is much closer to the sun and sufficiently heated. Looking at solar system comets, most only begin releasing substantial water within about 3 astronomical units of the sun. At greater distances, like beyond Jupiter's orbit, they readily release CO2 and CO. Therefore, when Atlas was observed in July at 4 to 5 AA from the sun, detecting abundant CO2, but little water vapor was entirely. Astronomers like Daryl Seligman have explained that Atlas's current distance makes the direct non-detection of water normal. As it approaches the sun, water will appear. Indeed, the European Space Agency's SPHERX space telescope later confirmed the coma is rich in CO2 gas, while also detecting water ice in the nucleus, indicating water is present but currently frozen. Atlas's chemistry aligns with solar system comets. It is not strange alien exhaust. Media hype about high CO2 often resulted from flawed comparisons contrasting Atlas's distant gas ratios with other comets measured near the sun. A proper comparison uses data from similar distances. Experienced astronomers know a comet's water season begins when it gets closer to the sun. CO2 dominance is temporary. By early November, when Atlas reaches perihelion, water vapor levels are expected to surge and the CO2 proportion will drop. Future scientific data will likely focus on these perihelion measurements. It triggered an overwhelming influx of alien spacecraft rumors. Word spread about a wandering ship carrying 10 million people and an alien probe hidden behind the sun. It sounded exactly like a sci-fi blockbuster plot. However, was this uninvited guest really that far-fetched? In reality, it was only the third interstellar comet discovered by humanity, 3I Atlas. Since its first observation on July 1, 2025, This comet has captivated astronomers worldwide. Today, let's unpack the truth about Comet Atlas. Is it really an alien spacecraft? And why has it sparked so many wild speculations? Comet Atlas's full designation is 3I Atlas C 2025N1. It is the third confirmed interstellar visitor, following Almua and Comet Borisov. Interstellar means it originated from outside our solar system, having previously drifted through the galactic void during its long journey. On July 1, 2025, the Atlas Survey telescope in Chile first captured its image. In less than 24 hours, scientists calculated its orbit and confirmed it was not bound by the sun's gravity, definitively ruling out a local origin. This immediately caused a sensation. Observatories and amateur astronomers globally rushed to observe it, as such interstellar visitors are exceptionally rare. A welcome surprise was that Atlas is also the largest interstellar object discovered to date. Latest observations indicate its core has a diameter of approximately 11 kilometers, significantly larger than the previous two interstellar visitors. However, there is no need for concern. This is not a world-ending impact event. According to NASA data, at its closest approach to the solar system, Comet Atlas will remain 1.6 to 1.8 astronomical units from Earth, roughly 240 to 270 million kilometers, where 1 astronomical unit is the Earth-Sun distance. This means its minimum distance from Earth exceeds the orbit of Mars. Therefore, Atlas poses no threat to our planet. Instead, it provides a rare opportunity for close observation of interstellar material. Given this, why did this comet still spark rumors of alien technology? To answer this, we must first clarify a fundamental point. Is Atlas a comet or an asteroid? And what is the difference? It is confirmed that Atlas is a comet, not an asteroid. This certainty stems from clear distinctions in composition and appearance between comets and asteroids, often discernible even with amateur telescopes. Asteroids are primarily composed of rock and metal, making them relatively solid. Comets, often called dirty snowballs, are made of ice, dust, and organic matter. When a comet approaches the sun and heats up, its ice sublimates, releasing gas and dust that form a diffuse coma and often a long tail, leaving a visible trail. In contrast, asteroids lacking significant volatile substances do not develop this cometary activity or tail, even when near the sun, and appear as simple points of light. In simple terms, comets look fuzzy with a tail from a distance, while asteroids appear sharp, like stars. Upon its discovery, Atlas was quickly observed to be surrounded by a fuzzy coma and dragging a short tail. Consequently, the International Astronomical Union officially classified it as a comet. Ironically, when initial observations were less precise, some speculated it might be a non-outgassing asteroid, but the emergence of its tail swiftly dispelled such notions. The variation in celestial body composition icy, mixtures versus rocky metal, relates to the temperature gradient during the solar system's formation. In hotter regions closer to the sun, volatiles like water and carbon dioxide could not remain solid long-term. Only heat-resistant materials like silicate rock and metal persisted. In the colder regions far from the sun, water, ice, and various gases could freeze solid and clump together, forming the conceptual snow line. In the primordial solar disk, water ice could only exist stably beyond about 3 astronomical units from the Sun. Carbon dioxide required about 10 astronomical units, and gases like carbon monoxide needed to be beyond 30 astronomical units to freeze. Thus, the solar system developed an inner rocky and outer icy structure. The inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, are rocky, while the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, are primarily gas and ice. The asteroid belt in between contains scattered rocky and metallic fragments. Further out, beyond Jupiter's orbit, the Kuiper belt and the distant Oort cloud harbor countless frozen cometary nuclei. Typically, these comets reside in the frigid outer solar system. Once gravitational perturbations send them falling sunward, their ice begins to vaporize, transforming them into long-tailed comets. Most asteroids and comets within our solar system follow elliptical orbits around the Sun. Some have highly elongated orbits but remain closed. Even visitors from the Kuiper belt or Oort cloud follow solar gravity-dominated elliptical or parabolic paths. Interstellar comets are different. They typically enter the solar system at high speeds on open parabolic or even hyperbolic trajectories. They appear to streak in on an almost straight path from interstellar space, make a sharp turn near the Sun, and then head back out into deep space without returning. Comet Atlas's orbital eccentricity is approximately 6.1 to 6.2, which is unmistakably hyperbolic, not elliptical. Even the most eccentric long-period comets from the Oort cloud have eccentricities less than 1, meaning they are on extremely elongated elliptical orbits and will eventually return. Atlas is different. Its eccentricity far exceeds 1, clearly indicating it is just passing through. It is entering at about 60 kilometers per second from the direction of Sagittarius, slicing through the solar system, utterly unlike native comets obediently orbiting the Sun. This extreme orbit reveals its origin. It is likely a rogue comet that formed around another star and was later ejected into interstellar space, only to briefly graze our solar system. Asteroids and most comets are solar system natives, formed from the primordial solar nebula. Interstellar comets like Atlas are guests from alien systems. Formed in the frozen realms around other stars, they were likely ejected by gravitational interactions. Our own solar system constantly ejects comets into galactic space. Estimates suggest billions may have been cast out over its lifetime. Atlas is likely a reciprocal gift from another star system. Notably, the previous 2 interstellar visitors were also comets, or at least exhibited cometary traits. Alma, initially tailless, was later suspected of releasing hard-to-detect gas. Borisov was unequivocally a typical comet. To date, humanity has never confirmed an interstellar asteroid, but we have several interstellar comets. This statistical trend supports the theory that comets, forming in the outer reaches of planetary systems, are more easily ejected into interstellar. In summary, by appearance, composition, and orbit, Atlas is unequivocally a standard dirty snowball comet. Exaggerated notions of a 50 km iron asteroid killer can safely be relegated to science. The second rumor concerning Comet Atlas involves its anomalous gas composition. Reports claimed an unusually high detected ratio of carbon dioxide to water, sparking wild theories including CO2 exhaled by an alien army, even calculating that 10 million aliens exhaling could match Atlas's CO2 output. This reasoning is absurd. In reality, high CO2 and low water content is perfectly normal comet behavior, with no evidence suggesting alien activity. The explanation is straightforward. A comet's outgassing depends on distance from the sun and sublimation temperatures. Water ice sublimates significantly only above roughly 0 degrees Celsius, while CO2 ice sublimes around minus 70 degrees Celsius. Therefore, when a comet is far from the sun, the first volatiles to escape are easily sublimated gases like CO and CO2. Water vapor emission only becomes dominant when the comet is much closer to the sun and sufficiently heated. Looking at solar system comets, most only begin releasing substantial water within about 3 astronomical units of the sun. At greater distances, like beyond Jupiter's orbit, they readily release CO2 and CO. Therefore, when Atlas was observed in July at 4 to 5 AA from the sun, detecting abundant CO2, but little water vapor was entirely. Astronomers like Darrell Seligman have explained that Atlas's current distance makes the direct non-detection of water normal. As it approaches the sun, water will appear. Indeed, the European Space Agency's SPHERX space telescope later confirmed the coma is rich in CO2 gas, while also detecting water ice in the nucleus, indicating water is present but currently frozen. Atlas's chemistry aligns with solar system comets. It is not strange alien exhaust. Media hype about high CO2 often resulted from flawed comparisons contrasting Atlas's distant gas ratios with other comets measured near the sun. A proper comparison uses data from similar distances. Experienced astronomers know a comet's water season begins when it gets closer to the sun. CO2 dominance is temporary. By early November, when Atlas reaches perihelion, water vapor levels are expected to surge and the CO2 proportion will drop. Future scientific data will likely focus on these perihelion measurements. Some media, however, seized on a single data point, adding imaginative layers about alien respiration, forcibly equating natural sublimation to synchronized breathing of millions. While creative, it remains pure fiction. In summary, Comet Atlas's chemical composition is not abnormal. Current analysis indicates its outgassing is roughly 87% CO2, 9% CO, and less than 5% water vapor. These ratios will change rapidly as it nears the sun. By year's end, near Earth's orbit, we expect to detect more water and other volatiles. Scientists even hope to study it for prebiotic molecules like amino acids, offering clues in the search for extraterrestrial life. These concrete scientific goals are far more reliable than speculating about alien exhalations. Compared to baseless panic, we should focus on the unprecedented scientific opportunity this interstellar visitor presents. Comet Atlas will fly past Mars around October 3, 2025, at a remarkably close distance of about 0.2 astronomical units, roughly 30 million kilometers. This is over 10 times closer than its nearest approach to Earth. While Earth-based observations are limited to 1.6 to 1.8 astronomical units, probes orbiting Mars have a VIP close-up seat. The European Space Agency plans to observe 3I Atlas using its Mars Express and the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter, TGO. Instruments like the High-Resolution Stereo Camera, HRSC, on Mars, Express, and the Cassis camera on TGO will attempt direct imaging. Success would yield the clearest ever photos of an interstellar comet. NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO, with its powerful high-IAC camera, 0.5-meter aperture, is also scheduled for observations. In early October, high-IC could achieve a resolution of about 30 kilometers per pixel, enabling photometry of the bright coma and refined estimates of the nucleus size. This could allow, for the first time, a direct size measurement of an interstellar comet's nucleus from tens of millions of kilometers away, with accuracy vastly improved over previous Hubble estimates. Unlike Amowii, too small, dim, and Borisov, too far, Atlas offers a prime observation window. Its orbit is nearly coplanar with the ecliptic, only 5 inclination, placing it perfectly for observation by the fleet of probes around other planets. It will also pass near Jupiter in March of the following year, potentially observable by the Juno spacecraft. Such close encounters are rare. Sending a probe to chase an interstellar object is immensely difficult. Atlas is conveniently coming to us. If successful, this event could dramatically advance our understanding of interstellar material. Much of the speculation surrounding Atlas can be traced to Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb, a renowned figure who has shifted his focus to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Loeb often interprets puzzling celestial objects through the lens of alien technology, a perspective frequently amplified by media. In a mid-July preprint and blog post, Loeb described Comet Atlas as a potentially hostile alien technological craft, framing it as a pedagogical thought experiment lacking direct evidence, but listing perceived anomalies potentially explicable by intelligence. He noted its trajectory involves close flybys of Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, suggesting this could be a convenient route for an alien civilization to conduct reconnaissance, potentially releasing small probes during each pass. He also highlighted that during its late October perihelion, Atlas will be behind the Sun relative to Earth, potentially hiding its most active phase from our view, a possible tactic for stealth. Furthermore, its high entry speed makes interception impossible, perhaps intentionally, and he tenuously linked its arrival timeframe to the dawn of human recorded history. Based on these observations, Loeb speculated about advanced propulsion and light sails, warning of potential hostility under the dark forest hypothesis and urging preparedness. These statements quickly garnered media attention, with headlines sensationalizing the alien mothership angle. Loeb successfully, if controversially, captured public imagination. The vast majority of professional astronomers remain unconvinced. The consensus is clear: 3I Atlas is a comet. Many researchers expressed disappointment, feeling Loeb's speculation detracts from legitimate scientific work. Experts like Scott Manley pointed out flaws in the statistical analysis of its orbit, finding nothing unnatural. Oxford astronomer Chris Lintott bluntly called suggestions of an artificial origin complete and utter nonsense, stating the hype insults serious scientific study. The scientific principle is clear. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Currently, the alien hypothesis for Atlas lacks any convincing proof. Loeb appears unbothered by criticism, valuing the thought experiment itself. This pattern is familiar. He previously argued Al-Mamour could be a light sail and leads the Galileo project to search for ET technosignatures. His work often sparks public debate, but faces swift rebuttals from peers. The public, however, often remembers the sensational claim more than the subsequent debunking, explaining why rampant rumors persist despite Atlas's normal cometary characteristics. Synthesizing the scientific community's analysis, we can state with high confidence that Atlas is an interstellar comet, not an alien spacecraft. Its properties fit comfortably within known cometary parameters, and its anomalies have natural explanations. This doesn't diminish the wonder. This visitor from a distant star system carries material from another planetary cradle. Studying its composition could revolutionize our understanding of exoplanetary systems, and perhaps even the building blocks of life. The close pass by Mars offers a priceless observation opportunity, potentially elevating interstellar object research to new heights. As for the imaginative sci-fi narratives, they make for entertaining discussion. But before rigorous science, they remain merely imagination. Perhaps no fleet is visiting this time, but this global event serves as excellent public outreach, sparking interest in astronomy and inspiring storytellers. Loeb's hypotheses, while unproven, offer engaging thought experiments for sci-fi enthusiasts, perhaps the seed for a future blockbuster. As one netizen quipped, any hypothetical aliens on Atlas might be disappointed to find humans have already written their script. The final answer seems clear. Atlas is a frozen cosmic snowball. Humanity need not ready its laser cannons, but should instead point its telescopes skyward to appreciate and study this far-flung traveler. When it rounds the sun in November and passes near Earth in December, we anticipate a brighter, longer tale of victory for science over speculation, and a moment where curiosity and discovery illuminate the cosmos. Every such visitor expands our cosmic horizon, and while the truth may not mirror science fiction, the act of searching the skies and asking, "Are we alone?" remains one of humanity's most profound and romantic endeavors. Let us await with rational curiosity the secrets Comet Atlas may yet reveal. In the 72 hours following the comet's flyby, the official silence from NASA and ESA only served to amplify the global sense of anticipation. Behind the closed doors of scientific team meetings, however, the atmosphere was electric, with a mixture of exhilaration and profound unease. The motion trajectories of these fragments do not conform to any conventional gravitational model, declared Dr. Sarah Johnson, an orbital dynamics expert at JPL, pointing at a simulation on the screen during a secure video conference. Look here, the spiral descent patterns of fragments A and C suggest something more akin to a controlled deceleration process. High-resolution images from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO, revealed that the dozens of fragments detached from Atlas's nucleus were not dispersing randomly. Instead, they moved in a complex, coordinated dance. Some fragments rotated in pairs, while others traced precise arcing paths, as if choreographed by an unseen hand. Electrostatic interactions are a possibility, proposed Dr. Hans Muller, a physicist from the European Space Agency, trying to anchor the phenomenon in known physics. The surface electrostatic field on the nucleus could be far more complex than we anticipated. But what kind of electrostatic field could produce such coordinated movement? Johnson countered. This would require different fragments to carry precisely controlled differential charges. That is virtually impossible in a natural environment. In a parallel analysis team, spectroscopists were grappling with their own set of perplexing data. The carbon isotope ratios are completely anomalous to solar system standards, said Mingyu Chun, a young researcher from MIT, highlighting a curve on his monitor. Look here, the C12-C13 ratio is 120. We have never seen that in any native solar system body. And the deuterium to hydrogen ratio is also exceptionally high, added his colleague, Dr. Amanda Lee from Caltech. This indicates it formed in an environment fundamentally different from our own protosolar nebula. These findings rippled quickly through professional circles. Atlas was not just an interstellar visitor. It was a carrier of chemical fingerprints from another stellar system, one that may have formed under conditions starkly different from our own. While scientists debated in labs and conference rooms, public interest in Comet Atlas reached a fever pitch. On social media, the hashtag #AlienComet garnered over 2 billion clicks in 24 hours. A flood of homemade analysis videos went viral, with some of the most viewed ones claiming to have decoded intelligent messages from the comet's 22-second pulses. These pulses are absolutely not random noise. A YouTuber who claimed to be a former signals intelligence analyst asserted to his millions of followers, "I've run Fourier analysis and pattern recognition algorithms. There is a non-random, complex structure embedded within the carrier's signal. It's not a language we understand, but it has the statistical hallmarks of information encoding." Meanwhile, the scientific blogosphere and more reputable science communicators found themselves in a difficult position. They had to address the public's legitimate curiosity while carefully dismantling the more outlandish claims. The methane spike is intriguing, but correlation is not causation, explained Dr. Kenji Tanaka in a widely shared live stream, his avatar floating above a model of Mars. Comet Atlas is a complex object venting large amounts of volatile gases. Its interaction with the Martian exosphere and even its own extensive magnetic field, which is unusual for a comet, could have triggered the release of subsurface methane clathrates. It's an extraordinary natural experiment, not necessarily a sign of, well, artificial intervention. Dr. Avi Loeb, seizing on the new data, published another provocative preprint. The coordinated motion of the fragments is reminiscent of a swarm of nanoprobes deployed for distributed sensing, he wrote. The 22-second signal could be a beacon or a synchronization pulse for this swarm. The coincidence of its passage with the dawn of human civilization, as I noted before, may be less coincidental than we think. It is possible a precursor probe entered the outer solar system millennia ago, and Atlas is its activated payload, arriving now that we have reached a sufficient technological threshold. This new paper was a lightning rod, drawing both scorn from mainstream astronomers and fascination from the public. The pressure on space agencies was immense. The public and their political representatives demanded answers. In a rare, hastily convened joint press conference, the heads of NASA, ESA, and a representative from the Chinese National Space Administration, CNSA, faced the media. Comet 3I Atlas represents the most significant opportunity for interstellar science in history. The NASA administrator began, her face serious. The data from the Mars flyby is being analyzed by our top teams. Some phenomena are unexpected and challenging to explain with current models. This is not a cause for alarm, but a call for deeper investigation. She then announced the Atlas Initiative, a globally coordinated effort to observe and study the comet as it approached perihelion and then Earth. The initiative would pool resources from over a dozen spacefaring nations. Space-based assets, the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, and the Hubble Space Telescope would enter a dedicated, continuous observation mode once the comet re-emerged from solar conjunction. ESA's Gaia Observatory and NASA's TESS would also contribute astrometric and photometric data. Ground-based collaboration. Every major radio telescope on Earth, from the Arecibo successor in Puerto Rico to the FAST telescope in China and the VLBA network, was tasked with monitoring Atlas for any form of radio emission. Optical telescopes worldwide were coordinated to provide 24/7 coverage of its brightness and cometary activity. A new mission. Most dramatically, she announced that NASA, in partnership with SpaceX, was fast-tracking a previously conceptual mission, the Rapid Intercept Vehicle, REV. Using a pre-stacked Falcon Heavy and a simplified, specialized probe, they would attempt to launch a high-speed flyby mission to intercept Atlas as it passed near Earth's orbit in December. "The window is incredibly tight," she admitted, "but the scientific payoff is immeasurable. We will go and meet this visitor." The announcement was met with a mix of applause and trepidation. Humanity was not just going to watch. It was going to reach out and touch the mystery. Following its dramatic pass by Mars, Comet Atlas continued its plunge toward the Sun. On October 21st, as predicted, it moved into superior solar conjunction. From the perspective of Earth, it disappeared directly behind the blinding glare of our star. For the next 6 weeks, a tense global silence descended upon the scientific community. They were flying blind. The comet was at its most active stage, near its perihelion, experiencing the sun's intense heat and gravity, and they could see nothing. Teams used this time to refine their models, run countless simulations, and prepare their instruments for the comet's reappearance. The REV team worked around the clock, integrating instruments and testing systems for a launch window that was unforgiving. The public's imagination, unconstrained by the lack of data, ran wild. Conspiracy theories flourished. Some claimed secret space agencies were already in communication with the alien craft. Others predicted it would not reappear at all, having used the sun's energy to jump to another dimension or simply vanish back into the void from whence it came. Then, in late November, the first signal came. It wasn't from a space telescope, but from the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO. Its LASCO C3 coronagraph, which blocks the sun's disk to observe its corona, captured a faint, fuzzy object emerging from the solar glare. It was brighter, much brighter than predicted. The first clear images from the reactivated James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, elicited gasps from the control team. Comet Atlas had not just survived. It had been transformed. Its coma, now spanning over twice its pre-perihelion diameter, blazed with an intense, actinic blue-white light at its core, still surrounded by the haunting green hue of diatomic carbon. The tail had lengthened spectacularly, a shimmering river of dust and ionized gas, stretching far beyond the initial field of view. But the most startling feature was the nucleus itself. While still fuzzy at this resolution, it no longer appeared as a single diffuse blob. High-contrast processing revealed a distinct, sharp-edged hexagonal structure at the heart of the brilliance. "It's geometric," whispered a JWST data analyst, her voice tight with disbelief. "The outgassing, it's not uniform. It's focused, channeled from the 6 vertices." Dr. Kenji Tanaka, now a central figure in the media's coverage, addressed this development on his nightly broadcast. "What we are likely seeing is a focusing effect caused by the crystallization of the comet's mantle under extreme solar heating. Certain ices and minerals can form crystalline structures with straight-line features. It's unprecedented, but not impossible." His tone, however, lacked its usual conviction. The perfect hexagon was unnerving. The Atlas Initiative shifted into its highest gear. The global network of telescopes locked onto the comet, and a torrent of data began to flow. The 22-second pulse, which had ceased during the solar conjunction, returned. It was stronger now and more complex. Analysis revealed it was no longer a simple carrier wave, but a modulated signal containing what appeared to be nested, fractal patterns. It was a beautiful, intricate, and utterly inscrutable piece of cosmic art. Chapter 15. The Rapid Intercept Vehicle, RIV. At Cape Canaveral, the atmosphere was a mixture of wartime urgency and transcendent wonder. The RIV, nicknamed the Handshake by its engineering team, was a marvel of focused engineering. It carried no complex lander or sample return system. Its mission was simple: get there, fly past as close as possible, and use its suite of instruments to gather as much data as it could in a frantic few hours. Its payload was a tightly packed array of sensors. High-res imagery suite, capable of resolving features on the nucleus down to a resolution of centimeters per pixel. Mass spectrometer, to taste the composition of the coma and tail with unprecedented precision. Dust analyzer, to characterize the size, composition, and electrical properties of the ejected particles. Magnetometer and plasma wave sensor, to map the object's complex magnetic field and its interaction with the solar wind. The eavesdropper, a sophisticated multi-band radio receiver specifically designed to record the 22-second pulse and any other emissions in their full, raw detail. The launch atop a roaring Falcon Heavy was flawless. Handshake was on a fast, direct trajectory, a cosmic bullet aimed at a moving, enigmatic target. For the team, the wait began. The probe would need several weeks to match orbits with the swiftly moving comet. Chapter 16. The Schism. As Handshake raced through space, the scientific community fractured openly. The naturalists, led by figures like Dr. Tanaka, worked furiously to explain the hexagon and the pulse through natural, if exotic, phenomena. Consider clathrate hydrates undergoing phase transitions under immense thermal stress, Tanaka argued in a widely circulated paper. The hexagon could be a temporary pressure release valve system. The pulse could be a resonant vibration within the nucleus's newly structured ice, modulating outgassing in a regular rhythm. We are witnessing a new type of planetary geology. That's all. The technologists, galvanized by Loeb's unyielding stance, gained traction with each new data release. They pointed to the fractal complexity of the pulse, the sustained geometric shape of the nucleus, and the coordinated motion of the Mars fragments as an interlocking body of evidence. The naturalist explanations are becoming a series of epicycles, Loeb declared during a fiery panel debate. First, it was normal outgassing. Then it was unusual isotopic ratios. Then it was electrostatic forces. Now it's resonant vibrations in a hexagonal pressure release system. How many layers of unprecedented natural phenomena must we stack before we seriously consider the simpler, more elegant explanation that we are looking at a piece of technology? The debate spilled out of academic journals and into the open. World leaders held closed-door meetings. The United Nations established a provisional committee on extrasolar object affairs. The CT Institute, once on the fringes, found itself at the center of the storm. Chapter 17. The First Contact Protocol. A quiet, profound anxiety began to permeate global culture. The question was no longer, what is it? But what do we do? The old, hypothetical first contact protocols, drafted in a more optimistic age, felt hopelessly naive. A secret, high-level summit was convened in Geneva, bringing together leading scientists, political leaders, military strategists, and philosophers. The topic, a contingency plan for the RIV's findings. The dark forest hypothesis, popularized by Liu Cixin's sci-fi novels, became a serious topic of discussion. If the universe was a forest full of hidden hunters, was Atlas a scout? Was its passive, enigmatic behavior a test of our intelligence and technological maturity? Or was it a warning? We cannot assume benevolence, argued a senior strategist. Any civilization capable of interstellar travel possesses power that dwarfs our own. The IRIV probe, our handshake, could be perceived as a threat. We are effectively poking it with a stick. Others advocated for a more open approach. This is the single greatest moment in human history, countered a renowned ethicist. We must approach it with humility and curiosity, not paranoia. That probe is our ambassador. Its data is our first conversation. The Geneva group reached a tense, fragile consensus. They drafted a message, a simple, universal primer of mathematics and basic physics, a digital handshake to be transmitted towards Atlas continuously as the RIV made its approach. It was a risk, but inaction seemed a greater one. Chapter 18. The Calm Before. In the final days before the RIV's flyby, a strange stillness fell over. Media coverage was constant, but the hysterical tone had been replaced by a somber, watchful gravity. The global public watched, holding its collective breath. The IRIV team at JPL performed their final systems checks. Handshake was performing perfectly, its course locked. It would pass within 1,000 kilometers of the nucleus, a hair's breadth in cosmic terms. The first raw images began to trickle in, taken from a distance of 100,000 kilometers. They showed the hexagonal nucleus in greater detail, but it was still shrouded in the brilliant, shimmering coma. Then the magnetometer registered a sudden, powerful shift. Atlas's magnetic field, which had been a steady, complex envelope, suddenly reconfigured. The field lines seemed to align, to focus. A final transmission was received from the RIV before it entered its closest approach phase, where its high-gain antenna would be unable to remain pointed at Earth. It was a single clean readout from the plasma wave sensor. The 22-second pulse had stopped. In its place was a new signal, a single, pure, unmodulated tone, and it was being broadcast directly at the approaching probe. In the JPL control room, all conversation ceased. The only sound was the steady, ominous hum of the new tone playing over the speakers. The handshake was about to be answered. In the silent, nerve-wracking minutes of the RIV's closest approach, the control room at JPL was a tableau of frozen tension. Every screen was a waterfall of data, but the primary display showed only a timer counting down the seconds to the probe's planned transmission window. The single, unmodulated tone from Atlas continued to drone from the speakers, a sonic backdrop to the precipice they were standing on. Then the timer hit 0. The high-gain antenna should have reoriented itself. The signal lock indicator should have turned green. It remained red. "Comms report," the flight director said, her voice steady but thin. "No signal acquisition. We are not receiving the post-flyby data burst." A collective groan rippled through the room. The worst-case scenario, a systems failure, or the probe being disabled by a dust impact, seemed to have come true. The single tone from Atlas suddenly ceased, returning the room to an even more profound and terrifying silence. And then the main screen flickered. A single, low-priority telemetry channel, not designed for primary data, sputtered to life. It was the engineering data stream reporting on the probe's basic health and status. The reef was still alive, but its trajectory had changed. It's turning," a navigation engineer stammered. "Its thrusters are firing. It's matching velocity with the target." This was impossible. The Air was a flyby probe, a cannonball. It didn't have the fuel for a sustained orbital maneuver. Yet the data was unequivocal. Handshake was no longer just passing by. It was parking itself in a parallel course a mere 100 kilometers from the hexagonal nucleus. Before anyone could process this, the primary data link erupted to life. It wasn't the organized, pre-packaged data burst they were expecting. It was a raw, overwhelming flood. First came the images. They were not the grainy, processed pictures from before. They were crystal clear, breathtaking, and terrifying. The hexagonal structure was not a natural geological formation. It was a framework, a vast, intricately patterned latticework of something that looked like fused, darkened metal and crystalline filaments. At its center, where the outgassing was most intense, was not a chaotic vent but a focused circular aperture from which the brilliant blue-white light streamed out like a controlled engine plume. The surface was covered in what could only be described as topography spires, conduits, and vast, smooth, obsidian-like plains that reflected no light. This was not a comet. It was a vessel. The mass spectrometer data went haywire. It wasn't just detecting water, CO2, and silicates. It was reading complex, long-chain carbon molecules, fullerenes, and isotopes arranged in ratios that screamed of industrial processing. Then came the final definitive piece of data. The eavesdropper suite had not just been listening. It had been recording the probe's own frantic attempts to re-establish contact. Buried in the noise was a new signal, a compressed, powerful data stream that had been directed at the RIV. The onboard computers operating on pre-programmed protocols had automatically recorded it and was now transmitting it home. It was a response to the universal greeting they had been transmitting. The signal contained no language, no images of alien beings. Instead, it was a single, incredibly complex mathematical construct. The first part was a star chart, pinpointing Atlas's origin not to a nearby star like Alpha Centauri, but to a region in the Perseus arm over 10,000 light-years away. The second part was a schematic. It appeared to be a blueprint for a component of the RIV's own communication system, but with modifications showing how to boost its power and efficiency by an order of magnitude. It was a gift, a teacher correcting a student's homework. The third and final part of the transmission was a single repeating sequence, a countdown. It was calibrated to the Earth's rotation. It marked a point precisely 72 hours in the future. The message was clear. The conversation was over. The test, if that's what it was, had been passed. Now a meeting was scheduled. The world did not sleep for the next 3 days. The revelation that humanity was not alone was no longer a question. It was a fact delivered with incontrovertible data. The technologists were vindicated, but there was no celebration, only a staggering sense of awe and fear. The reef, now silent and seemingly under external control, maintained its station alongside the vast alien artifact. Atlas itself had changed its behavior. Its outgassing had ceased completely. The brilliant coma and tail, which were now understood to be a form of propulsion or waste heat dissipation, collapsed back towards the nucleus, coalescing into a shimmering, protective shell around the hexagonal structure. The object was now a sleek, dark geometric shape encircled by a gentle, luminous aura, still moving steadily towards Earth's orbital path. Governments activated emergency protocols. Air travel was rerouted. Satellite operators nervously monitored their assets. The world's militaries stood by on a level of alert unseen since the Cold War, utterly impotent against an object that could casually hijack their most advanced spacecraft. Aboard the International Space Station, astronauts watched as the object grew from a bright star into a distinct, silent, and unervingly geometric moonlet in their skies. They were the first humans to see it with their own eyes, a moment of profound historical weight that was broadcast live to a breathless planet. As the final hours of the countdown ticked away, the object began to slow its inbound velocity, not heading for Earth itself, but moving to insert itself into a stable, high Earth orbit. It was taking up a position where all of humanity could see it. The countdown reached 0 at 3 o'clock GMT. Every telescope on the day side and night side of Earth was trained on the same point in the sky. Social media feeds went strangely quiet. The world held its breath. For a long moment, nothing happened. The object hung in its new orbit, dark and silent. Then a new light ignited on its surface. Not the blue-white of its engine, but a soft golden radiance. It began at the 6 vertices of the hexagon and flowed inward along the latticework, tracing the intricate patterns like liquid light. Within minutes, the entire structure was illuminated from within, a vast, beautiful, and impossibly complex celestial lantern. Simultaneously, a new omnidirectional radio transmission began to emanate from it. It was not a complex data stream, but a simple, repeating series of prime numbers followed by the basic atomic spectra of hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. It was the most fundamental hello imaginable, a deliberate, patient signal designed to be understood by any developing intelligence. And then the RIV probe, the handshake, suddenly powered up its own transmitter. Using the modified schematics it had been sent, it broadcast a powerful signal back to Earth. The signal contained the entirety of its encounter data, but prefacing it was a new file generated by the probe's own computers. It was a single high-resolution image of the Earth, taken from the RIV's perspective during its flyby, but superimposed over the image were mathematical symbols, topological maps of neural networks, and the chemical structure of DNA. The alien intelligence using the probe as an intermediary was not just saying hello. It was showing humanity that it saw them. It understood their biology, their intellect, and their world. And it was initiating a conversation. In the JPL control room, tears streamed down the faces of engineers and scientists. The fear did not vanish, but it was joined by an overwhelming, indescribable hope. They had reached out into the darkness, expecting a cliff face or a void. Instead, the darkness had reached back with patience, with intelligence, and with a light. The age of isolation was over. The object in the sky was no longer a comet, nor a threat. It was a gateway, and its name was no longer Atlas, a bearer of weight. It was Prometheus, and it had brought a new fire to humanity. The golden-hued Prometheus hung silently in orbit, a sigil against the star field. Its transmitted foundational signals, prime numbers, elemental spectra continued their patient, inexorable broadcast. Scientists worldwide confirmed it as a first-type contact signal, designed to establish a basic communicative protocol. The true challenge, however, lay in processing the complex data packet returned via the RIV probe, the gift modified and sent back by Prometheus. It was not a simple greeting, but a multi-layered, self-referential mathematical construct, a cognitive labyrinth containing its own decryption key, a translation consortium of the world's leading mathematicians, physicists, linguists, and computer scientists rapidly formed online. Their first breakthrough came from analyzing the improved schematics for the RIV probe. This isn't just an efficiency upgrade, a CERN physicist explained during the consortium's first video conference. It introduces principles for encoding information, using quantum fluctuations, a technology we've theorized about but never realized. It's teaching us how to talk to it more effectively. Meanwhile, analysis of the composite message containing the Earth image, neural topology, and DNA structure yielded a more profound insight. A neuroscientist from India discovered that the symbols superimposed on the neural map described not a static structure, but a learning algorithm, a mathematical description of how intelligent consciousness emerges from chaos and self-optimizes. It's not saying, "I see your brains," she explained to the consortium. It's saying, I understand the process of intelligence generation. It recognized us as a species capable of generating consciousness and learning. That is the key reason it decided to communicate. The core of Prometheus's message was not about sharing data, but about sharing a framework for understanding. It was elevating humanity's cognitive level to enable a deeper dialogue. As the scientific community celebrated each minor interpretive breakthrough, human society plunged into a deeper maelstrom. A religious movement dubbed the Church of the Advent swept across the globe with astonishing speed. Its followers saw Prometheus as a divine messenger, or God itself, bringing salvation and transcendence. Thousands gathered outdoors, praying towards the golden point of light in the night sky. Opposing them was the Earth Fortress Coalition, which viewed Prometheus as an unprecedented threat, a civilizational virus aiming to paralyze human will with a technophilic sugarcoating. Protests demanding governments use nuclear weapons to destroy the object erupted worldwide, despite all experts deeming this futile and dangerously provocative. The fragile cooperation between governments began to fray. Major powers insisted the translation consortium be placed under a military council controlled by the UN Security Council, framing all contact as strategic intelligence gathering. Smaller, developing nations feared that any breakthroughs related to the alien technology would be monopolized by a few, exacerbating global inequality. In Geneva, the secret First Contact Committee became a theater of fierce debate. We cannot be lulled by its benign presentation. A general pounded the table. It modified our probe. It has displayed technology beyond our comprehension. This is a show of force and a reconnaissance mission. It is assessing our technology, our social structures, our defensive capabilities. Or, an elderly philosopher countered calmly, it is patiently teaching a child how to form more complex sentences. You view everything through the lens of war, General. But what if this is a classroom? What if we are facing a teacher from an ancient cosmic civilization? Amid the chaos, Professor Avi Loeb's voice held a tone of grim vindication. I said it before, he repeated on every available media platform. The dark forest hypothesis might be true, but we overlooked a possibility. The forest contains not only hunters, but also gardeners. And a gardener's relationship with the beings in their garden is fundamentally different from that of a hunter. The question is, what does a gardener do? Prune? Graft? Or uproot the plants that don't meet expectations? On the seventh day of Prometheus's orbital presence, a breakthrough occurred as the Translation Consortium successfully applied part of the new mathematical language learned from Prometheus to parse the initial complex data packet. It was not a weapons blueprint nor a star chart. It was an index. Prometheus had sent a directory and access protocol for a vast repository of knowledge, dubbed the Archive. Its contents were stored within Prometheus itself, or accessed through it from some distant data source. The first layer of the archive was a restatement of the universe's fundamental physical laws, some subtly different yet more elegant and unified than humanity's own. It contained a mathematical framework unifying general relativity and quantum mechanics, whose simplicity and beauty brought the world's top theoretical physicists to tears. The second layer contained vast data on stellar formation, planetary system architecture, and the chemical foundations of life, far exceeding the totality of human knowledge gathered over centuries. It included biochemical models for thousands of different planetary environments. The third layer, requiring a more advanced key to access, was titled The Phenomenology of Consciousness and Intelligence in the Cosmos. But most striking and most disquieting was an entry repeatedly tagged Great Filter Mechanism Warning. It was locked in a section adjacent to one requiring specific conditions to unlock, accompanied by a preliminary translation that read, "Probability analysis for civilizational success in traversing the technological singularity and achieving sustainable interstellar existence, and associated risks." Prometheus was not just a messenger. It was a librarian. It had brought a library containing the universe's deepest mysteries and its most deadly dangers. The world erupted in a fierce debate over what question to ask Prometheus first. The public submitted millions of queries through various platforms, ranging from "How do we cure cancer?" to "Does God exist?" This was no longer a scientific matter, but a choice defining humanity's collective destiny. After 48 hours of intense, compromised debate within the First Contact Committee, a simple, direct, yet multi-layered question was chosen. Using the RIV probe's upgraded COMS system, it was transmitted towards the Golden Lantern in orbit. "Prometheus, why have you come to the solar system?" The entire planet seemed to hold its breath. Seconds later, the golden light of Prometheus pulsed softly. Its response was immediate, direct, and composed of basic mathematical symbols and a simple star map. The map showed the solar system and a trajectory leading to it from the distant Perseus arm. Next to the trajectory was a clear symbol resembling a seed or a parcel. The translation of the mathematical symbols was swiftly completed by the consortium. They conveyed a simple concept: to sow, to guard, to await the bloom. A second transmission followed. It was more complexly encoded, but its core message was unmistakable. It was a timetable, a countdown. This countdown pointed to a future date, accompanied by an icon of Earth and a symbol representing data exchange. The countdown's endpoint was 30 days. The message was clear. It had come to sow something and guard its growth, and in 30 days it would begin the harvest or the data exchange. Humanity was given 1 month to digest the initial gift of knowledge and ask further questions, preparing for the impending true point of contact. So what? Guard whom? What does the bloom signify? What data will be exchanged? Fear and hope became intertwined as never before. The golden Prometheus hung silently in the night sky, a silent examiner that had given humanity its final study guide. And the date of the examination was approaching, 1 day at a time. The world watched the 30-day countdown with a feverish intensity. The initial awe surrounding Prometheus curdled into a global state of nervous anticipation. The enigmatic message to sow, to guard, to await the bloom was analyzed relentlessly. The breakthrough came not from Earth but from the Moon. A Chinese lunar rover, the U-23, on the far side of the Moon, reported anomalous energy readings and localized seismic activity from the von Karman crater. The data, initially dismissed as instrumentation error, was cross-referenced with orbital assets. What they revealed sent a new shockwave through the scientific and military communities. High-resolution imagery from NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter LRO and India's Chandrayaan-3 showed it clearly. A patch of the lunar regolith, roughly a square kilometer in size, was transforming. The gray, dusty surface was being overlaid with an intricate, silvery filigree, a pattern that mirrored the hexagonal latticework of Prometheus itself. It was growing slowly and deliberately, like crystalline frost spreading across a window pane. Prometheus had not just arrived, it had already begun its sowing. The seed was a form of self-assembling nanotechnology, dormant and undetected, until activated by its creator. It was terraforming, or more accurately, xenoforming, a patch of the moon. The Translation Consortium, working with data from the archive, identified the process. It was a foundation matrix, a programmable matter designed to create a stable, self-sustaining infrastructure. The purpose, according to the archive's oblique references, was for resource-neutral interface and data harmonization. It was building a landing pad, or perhaps a server room. This changed everything. The threat was no longer abstract. It was physical, expanding, and located on humanity's celestial doorstep. The Earth Fortress Coalition found a powerful new rallying cry. They are building a beachhead. Their leaders thundered. The moon is the first step. The UN Security Council convened in an emergency session, shrouded in unprecedented secrecy. The debate was no longer about communication. It was about action. The American and European delegates, backed by their militaries, pushed for a resolution authorizing a kinetic interdiction of the lunar site, a preemptive strike using experimental ground-penetrating missiles launched from a secret American cislunar patrol craft. The Russian and Chinese delegates, horrified at the prospect of an unprovoked attack on an object of immense scientific and potentially existential value, and on their side of the moon, vehemently opposed it. They threatened a military response of their own if such an action was taken. The world stood on the brink of its first interplanetary war, fought over a patch of alien machinery on the moon. Chapter 27. The Fracture. The secret of the lunar construction site was leaked. A mid-level analyst at ESA, a member of the Church of the Advent, believing humanity was interfering with a divine process, released the data to the world. Global panic erupted. Stock markets crashed. Governments imposed martial law in major cities. The fragile digital infrastructure of the world groaned under the weight of fear and misinformation. Aboard the International Space Station, the international crew found their camaraderie strained to breaking point. The American and Russian astronauts, once symbols of post-Cold War cooperation, now moved through the modules in a state of tense silence, their communications with their respective ground controls growing increasingly encrypted and frequent. On Earth, Dr. Kenji Tanaka appeared on a global broadcast, his face gaunt with exhaustion. "We must not do this," he pleaded. "This seed is not a weapon. It is a tool. The archive data suggests it's a neutral infrastructure. To attack it is to attack the hand that is offering us knowledge. It would be the greatest act of folly in human history, born from paranoia." Avi Loeb, in a stark counterpoint, gave a sober interview. "The gardeners are not asking for permission. They are gardening. Whether they are pruning us or nurturing us remains to be seen. But a show of violent, chaotic resistance may very well convince them that we are a weed, not a flower worth preserving." In a clandestine facility in Nevada, A different kind of meeting was taking place. A cabal of tech billionaires, defense contractors, and rogue intelligence officials operating under the banner Project Icarus made a decision. They could not wait for the paralyzed political process. They would seize the initiative. Using a privately funded, secretly constructed spacecraft, a rapid response interceptor designed for asteroid deflection, they would launch their own mission to the moon. Their objective was not to destroy the site, but to capture a sample of the technology, to steal the fire. Chapter 28, The Guardian's Response. As the Icarus interceptor, officially logged as a commercial communications satellite launch, achieved Earth orbit and began its burn towards the moon, Prometheus acted. There was no warning, no change in its golden radiance, no hostile beam of energy. The RIV probe, the handshake which had been silently shadowing Prometheus, suddenly powered up its thrusters. It broke formation and maneuvered itself with impossible precision, placing itself directly in the calculated trajectory of the Icarus interceptor. A frantic private channel communication was sent from JPL to the Icarus. Abort. You are on a collision course with a multinational asset. Abort your burn. The Icarus team, believing this to be a bluff from a rival government, ignored it. When the Icarus was 10 minutes from its closest approach to the RIV, the little probe transmitted a final, simple message on an open frequency. It was a single, universal semiotic symbol from the archive, one that required no translation, a circle with a diagonal line through it, the symbol for prohibited. Then the RIV probe self-destructed. It was not a violent explosion. It was a controlled, precise event. The probe disassembled into a cloud of shimmering metallic dust, which expanded rapidly into a perfect disc-shaped cloud directly in the path of the Icarus. The private spacecraft, traveling at immense speed, plowed into the dust cloud. There was no catastrophic impact. Instead, the Icarus simply stopped. Its systems went dead. Its telemetry ceased. It was now an inert, silent husk, its electronics and propulsion systems seemingly neutralized by the microscopic particles. It began to drift, a tomb for the ambition of its creators. The message was chillingly clear. The gardener would not tolerate rogue elements interfering with the garden. It had used humanity's own probe, a tool it had effortlessly co-opted to enforce its will. It had defended its sowing without anger, without malice, with the detached efficiency of a gardener removing a pest. The kinetic strike proposed by the US and Europe was immediately and quietly taken off the table. The cost of aggression was now understood. Chapter 29, The Unblinking Eye. In the wake of the Icarus incident, a new, profound realization dawned on humanity. Prometheus was not a passive observer. It was a guardian, as its message had stated, and its guardianship was active and absolute. It saw everything. The consortium, analyzing the RIV's final moments, concluded that Prometheus had an intimate, real-time understanding of human global networks, both public and encrypted. It had known about the Icarus launch, its intent, and its trajectory long before any public agency. Its awareness was seemingly omniscient. This raised a terrifying question. If it could neutralize a spacecraft with such ease, what else could it do? Could it shut down power grids? Disable nuclear arsenals? The military strategists worst fears seemed confirmed, but in a way that rendered their own strategies obsolete. They were not facing an enemy to be outsmarted or outfought. They were facing a force of nature, one with intelligence and purpose. The focus shifted by necessity from confrontation to comprehension. The 30-day window was no longer a deadline for a test. It was a grace period to learn the rules of a new existence. The Translation Consortium, now operating with unprecedented funding and urgency, made a concerted push into the third layer of the archive, the phenomenology of consciousness. They discovered that the data exchange was not a simple upload. It was a symbiotic transfer. Prometheus sought to understand the qualia of human experience, the redness of red, the pain of loss, the joy of discovery, the very things that defined a conscious being. It wanted to integrate the human phenomenological spectrum into its vast cosmic knowledge base. In return, it offered a glimpse of what it contained: the collective experiences, the artistic triumphs, the philosophical epiphanies of other civilizations that had come before. It was offering humanity a place in a cosmic library of souls. Chapter 30. The Eve of Bloom. The final days of the countdown were marked by a global, surreal solemnity. The panic had subsided, replaced by a collective, introspective dread and wonder. People gathered with family, revisited places of personal significance, and looked up at the night sky with a new understanding of their place in the cosmos. On the moon, the silvery filigree had completed its growth. It now formed a vast, perfectly smooth disk, a mirror-like surface that reflected the earth and stars with impossible clarity. At its center stood a single, slender spire pointing towards the heavens. The Prometheus object itself began to change. Its golden internal light intensified, flowing towards the hexagonal vertices. Then, from these 6 points, 6 tendrils of pure light extended, not towards Earth, but towards the newly formed structure on the moon. They connected, forming a bridge of energy between the orbital guardian and its lunar creation. The spire on the moon began to glow with a soft, inviting white light. The countdown reached its final hour. The Translation Consortium, in consensus with what remained of global leadership, prepared their final pre-exchange communication. It was not a question, but a statement of intent, crafted from the principles learned from the archive itself. Prometheus, the message read, "We are ready to share our dawn. We await your twilight." As the clock ticked down to 0, the white light from the lunar spire pulsed once, gently enveloping the entire moon in a momentary corona. The energy bridge to Prometheus flared into blinding incandescence. On Earth, every screen, every radio receiver, every connected device flickered. For a single, timeless second, all of humanity perceived the same thing. Not an image, not a sound, but a feeling. A profound, overwhelming sense of connection, of countless other minds, other experiences, other ways of being, stretching across the galaxy and back to the beginning of time. Then it was gone. The Prometheus object remained in orbit, its light dimmed to its original, gentle golden state. The lunar structure stood silent. The exchange had begun, but its form was not what anyone had expected. It was not a download of blueprints or a history lesson. It was an invitation to step into a river of shared consciousness. The first data packets were not information. They were experiences. The feeling of sunlight on a non-human skin, the song of a creature from a world with 3 moons, the mathematical ecstasy of a silicon-based intelligence proving an eternal theorem. The bloom was not a singular event, but an ongoing low-frequency resonance in the human collective psyche. It was subtle, for most a fleeting sense of déjà vu when looking at unfamiliar star constellations, a newfound intuitive grasp of complex mathematical concepts for others, or spontaneous dreams filled with alien landscapes and emotions. People began calling it the hum, a background harmonic of the cosmos, now faintly audible to the soul. For a smaller, more sensitive subset of the population, primarily artists, savants, and deep meditators, the effect was profound. Composers wrote symphonies that, when played, seemed to alter listeners' brainwave patterns, inducing states of profound peace or catalytic creativity. Painters created works with impossible geometries and colors that shouldn't exist, images that conveyed direct emotional and conceptual weight. A community of these individuals, dubbed the Tuned, began to emerge, sharing their experiences in a new, intuitive language born from the archive's symbolic logic. The initial global panic subsided, replaced by a great sorting. Humanity was bifurcating. On one side were the connected, who embraced the hum and sought deeper integration with the Promethean network. They saw it as the next step in human evolution, a transcendence of the isolated self. On the other were the essentials, who fiercely clung to their unaugmented humanity, viewing the hum as a form of insidious pollution of the human spirit. They created shielded communities, silent zones, using technology derived in part from the archive itself to block the pervasive psychic signal. The political landscape shattered and reformed along these new lines, not of nationality, but of ontological choice. Chapter 32. The Price of the Gift. The knowledge from the archive began to revolutionize technology. Cures for once untreatable diseases were decoded. Room temperature superconductors were synthesized. The blueprint for a clean, fusion-based energy grid was made available, promising an end to resource wars and fossil fuel dependence. But every gift came with a subtle, unstated price. The new medical treatments often required a proprietary, impossibly complex nanet that could only be manufactured using instructions from the archive, creating a total dependency. The fusion reactor designs relied on a rare isotope that was abundantly available only in the asteroid belt, sparking a new frantic gold rush into space, now supervised by the silent guardian in orbit. Most alarmingly, the Great Filter Mechanism warning section of the archive remains stubbornly locked. The consortium theorized it wasn't just protected by a key, but by a developmental trigger. It would only unlock once humanity as a whole reached a specific, undefined threshold of technological or social maturity. This was the ultimate test and the ultimate warning. What was the filter? A technological plague? A AI rebellion? The inherent self-destructiveness of intelligent life? The fact that it was withheld suggested that knowing it too soon was itself a risk. A new fear took root that humanity was being given the tools to build a glorious cage, a civilization so advanced and comfortable it would have no need and no ability to question the gardener or seek its own independent path. We were being given the answers, but were we forgetting how to ask the questions? Chapter 33. The Second Seed. The lunar structure, now officially named the lunar lacuna for its mirror-like surface, had been quiescent since the bloom began. That changed on the one-year anniversary of Prometheus's arrival. The central spire activated again, but this time it didn't transmit a feeling. It projected a solid beam of coherent light not towards Earth, but towards Jupiter. The beam, visible to telescopes across the solar system, lasted for precisely 72 hours. When it ceased, a new patch of the silvery growing filigree was detected on the icy surface of Europa, Jupiter's moon. Prometheus was sowing a second seed, and then a third on the methane ice of Titan. The gardener was not just tending one flower, it was planting an entire garden across the solar system. This triggered a seismic shift in the global power dynamic. The old spacefaring nations and then the new private astral corporations saw a dire threat. If they did not establish a presence at these sites, they would be locked out of the next phase of cosmic evolution and the unimaginable resources and technologies that came with it. A frantic, desperate scramble to launch missions to Europa and Titan began. The Europa Rush was born, with nations and corporations forming fragile, tense alliances to beat their rivals. Humanity, still reeling from its internal transformation, was now being pushed outward, competing for the favor of a silent, gardening god. Chapter 34. The Ghost in the Bloom. As the Connected delved deeper into the shared experiences offered by the bloom, they began to notice anomalies. Flickers in the stream, echoes of minds that felt different, cold, vast, ancient. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, who had become a reluctant leader of the Connected, described it in a private journal. It's like swimming in a warm ocean and occasionally brushing against something made of polished stone and ice. There is no malice, but there is an absolute, terrifying otherness. It's the feeling of the gardener's mind. These encounters, dubbed ghostings, became more frequent. They were not communications, but mere proximities, like feeling the shadow of a leviathan pass beneath your boat. Those who experienced them reported a sense of their own insignificance so profound it bordered on psychic annihilation, followed by a sublime understanding of cosmic scales that shattered their human perspective. Meanwhile, the Essentials, led by a now retired and deeply cynical Avi Loeb, made their own discovery. By analyzing the noise at the very edge of the hum, the data that was being filtered out by the Promethean signal, they found a pattern. It was a faint, repeating, and desperate message embedded in the cosmic microwave background. It was not from Prometheus. The message was a warning, a single, simple image, broadcast on a loop from a source billions of light years away. A depiction of a star system not unlike our own, being systematically disassembled, its planets cracked open, by a swarm of objects whose silhouettes were hauntingly familiar. Hexagonal silhouettes. The message's final symbol was a universal semiotic for consumption. The Essential's conclusion was horrifying. Prometheus was not a gardener. It was a farmer. And the bloom was not the flowering of consciousness, but the fattening of livestock. The great filter wasn't a warning it was protecting us from. It was the process of harvest itself. Chapter 35. The Choice. The fragile peace shattered. The Connected dismissed the Essential's finding as paranoia, a corrupted signal, or a test of faith from Prometheus. The Essentials saw the Connected as willing cattle, their minds already co-opted. The world fractured into open, low-level conflict. Silent zones were attacked by connected militants seeking to liberate them. Essential saboteurs targeted infrastructure built on archive technology. The situation reached its climax when the first human mission, a joint U.S.-India-China venture, landed on Europa, near the growing seed. As the astronauts approached the silvery filigree, a ghosting event of unprecedented strength washed over the entire human network, both connected and essential. This time it was a clear, direct communication from the Promethean consciousness. It was not a warning or a lesson. It was an ultimatum conveyed as a complex, multi-sensory concept. The soil is prepared. The conditions are met. The filter is the choice between symbiotic growth and parasitic consumption. You have learned from our library. You have tasted our consciousness. Now you must choose your path. Integrate fully with the network and transcend your biological limitations to become true stewards of this garden. Or cling to your solitary nature and be pruned, for the ecosystem cannot sustain uncoordinated chaos. You have 24 solar rotations to decide. The choice must be unanimous. The message was clear. Humanity had to voluntarily surrender its individual sovereignty and merge its collective consciousness with the Promethean network, becoming one with the gardener. Or it would be eliminated, like a diseased branch, to make way for a more compliant species. The great filter was this very choice, a threshold countless other civilizations had failed to cross. Prometheus had not come to destroy humanity. It had come to recruit it, or failing that, to replace it. On Earth and in the fledgling colonies, humanity was given 1 month to achieve the impossible, to end millennia of conflict and division, and to speak with a single, unanimous voice. The ultimate democratic imperative had been laid upon them by a cosmic power. The fate of the human species now hinged on its ability to agree.